Around Town Video Magazine. Hello, this is Lady Simone from AroundTownTV.com and Around Town Magazine. We hope you enjoy this special conference today. Very educational. Stop the bullying. Now, bullying is not just messing around. It can cause severe pain and trauma in a young child's life. So the message is strong and clear today. Stop the bullying. If you see bullying as a teacher, as a parent, report it. A new initiative by the Obama administration to curb the bullying in America.
Everyone, please, good morning and welcome to the White House. I want to thank all of you for joining us here today to discuss an issue of great concern to me and to Barack, not just as president and as first lady, but as a mom and a dad. And that is the problem of bullying in our schools and in our communities. As parents, this issue really hits home for us. As parents, it breaks our hearts to think that any child feels afraid every day in the classroom or on the playground or even online. It breaks our hearts to think about any parent losing a child to bullying or just wondering whether their kids will be safe when they leave for school in the morning. And as parents, Barack and I also know that sometimes, maybe even a lot of the time, it's really hard for parents to know what's going on in our kids' lives. We don't always know because they don't always tell us every little detail. We know that from Sasha. Sasha's response is, "What happened at school today?" Nothing. That's it. It's like, well, we're taking you out of that school. So as parents, we know we need to make a real effort to be engaged in our children's lives, to listen to them and be there for them when they need us. We need to get involved in their schools and in their activities so that we know what they're up to, both in and out of the classroom. And when something is wrong, we need to speak up and we need to take action. That's just what Jackie Knight did. She's a mom from Moore, Oklahoma, who's here with us today. We got a chance to spend some time with her before, but when her child was bullied, she got together with other parents and planned community meetings where parents and students could share their stories. They also held meetings for the public to raise awareness about bullying. And they've been meeting with the school board and superintendent to discuss steps that they can take to keep their kids safe. But parents aren't the only ones who have a responsibility. We all need to play a role. As teachers, coaches, as faith leaders, elected officials, and anyone who's involved in our children's lives. And that doesn't just mean working to change our kids' behavior and recognize and reward kids who are already doing the right thing. And it means thinking about our own behavior as adults as well. We all know that when we as adults treat others with compassion and respect, when we take the time to listen and give each other the benefit of the doubt in our own adult lives, that sets an example for our children. It sends a message to our kids about how they treat others. So we all have a lot of work to do in this country on this issue. And I hope that all of you and everyone who is watching online will walk away from this day, from this conference, with new ideas and solutions that you can all take back to your own schools and your own communities. And I hope that all of us will step up and do our part to keep our kids safe and to give them everything they need to learn and grow and fulfill their dreams. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce this guy here. My husband and our president, President Barack Obama.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Well, welcome to the White House. I want to thank Michelle for her introduction and for marrying me.
and for putting up with me. I want to reiterate what Michelle said. Preventing bullying isn't just important to us as President and First Lady, it's important for us as parents. It's something we care deeply about. We're joined here by several members of Congress who've shown real leadership in taking up this cause. We've got a number of members of my administration with us today who are going to help us head up the efforts that come out of the White House on this issue. And I want to point out Judge Catherine O'Malley, the First Lady of Maryland. She is right here. Catherine. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. You have a chance to make an enormous difference, and you already have. Bullying isn't a problem that makes headlines every day, but every day it touches the lives of young people all across this country. I want to thank all of you for participating in this conference, but more importantly, I want to thank you for being part of what's a growing movement, led by young people themselves, to put a stop to bullying, whether it takes place in school or it's taking place online. And that's why we're here today. If there's one goal of this conference, it's to dispel the myth that bullying is just a harmless rite of passage or an inevitable part of growing up. It's not. Bullying can have destructive consequences for our young people. And it's not something we have to accept. As parents and students, as teachers and members of the community, we can take steps, all of us, to help prevent bullying and create a climate in our schools in which all of our children can feel safe. A climate in which they all can feel like they belong. As adults, we all remember what it was like to see kids picked on in the hallways or in the schoolyard. And I have to say, with big ears and the name that I have, I wasn't immune. I didn't emerge unscathed. But because it's something that happens a lot, and it's something that's always been around, sometimes we've turned our blind eye to the problem. We've said, yeah, kids will be kids. And so sometimes we overlook the real damage that bullying can do, especially when young people face harassment day after day, week after week. So consider these statistics. A third of middle school and high school students have reported being bullied during the school year. Almost 3 million students have said they were pushed, shoved, tripped, even spit on. It's also more likely to affect kids that are seen as different, whether it's because of the color of their skin, the clothes they wear, the disability they may have, their sexual orientation. And bullying's been shown to lead to absences and poor performance in the classroom, and that alone should give us pause, since no child should be afraid to go to school in this country. Today, bullying doesn't even end at the school bell. They can follow our children from the hallways to their cell phones to their computer screens. And in recent months, a series of tragedies has drawn attention to just how devastating bullying can be. We have just been heartbroken by the stories of young people who endured harassment and ridiculed day after day at school and who ultimately took their own lives. These were kids brimming with promise. Kids like Ty Field, kids like Carl Walker Hoover, who should have felt nothing but excitement for their future. Instead, they felt like they had nowhere to turn. That they had no escape from taunting and bullying. It made school something they feared. I want to recognize Ty's mom and dad who are here today, Carl's mother and sister who are here today. They've shown incredible courage as advocates against bullying in memory of the sons and the brother that they've lost. And so we're so proud of them, and we're grateful to them for being here today. No family should have to go through what these families have gone through. No child should feel that alone. We got to make sure our young people know that if they're in trouble, there are caring adults who can help, and young adults that can help. that even if they're having a tough time, they're going to get through it, and there's a whole world of possibility waiting for them. We also have to make sure we're doing everything we can so that no child is in that position in the first place. And this is a responsibility we all share. A responsibility we have to teach all children the golden rule. We should treat others the way we want to be treated. Now, the good news is people are stepping up and accepting responsibility. They're refusing to turn a blind eye to this problem. The PTA is launching a new campaign to get resources, information into the hands of parents. MTV is leading a new coalition to fight bullying online. And they're launching a series of ads to talk about the damage that's done when kids are bullied for the color of their skin or their religion or being gay or just being who they are. Others are leading their own efforts here today. And across the country, parents and students and teachers at the local level are taking action as well. They're fighting not only to change rules and policies, but also to create a stronger sense of community and respect in their schools. Joining this conference today is a young man I just had a chance to meet, Brandon Green from Rhode Island. Brandon's 14 years old. Back in 6th grade, when he was just a kid, he did a class project on bullying. Now, 2 years later, it's a school-wide organization with 80 members. They do monthly surveys in their school to track bullying rates. And what they realized is that stopping bullying isn't just about preventing bad behavior, it's also about working together and creating a positive atmosphere. So Brandon and his fellow committee members are now also doing activities like coat drives and community service at their school. And it's making a real difference. So we're very proud of Brandon. There's stories like this all across the country, where young people and their schools have refused to accept the status quo. And I want you all to know that you have a partner in the White House. As the former head of Chicago's public schools, nobody understands this issue better than my education secretary, Arnie Duncan. He's going to be working on it, along with our health secretary, Kathleen Sebelius. Arnie's going to head up our administration's efforts, which began last year with a first-of-its-kind summit on bullying. And we're also launching a new resource called stopbullying.gov, which has more information for parents and for teachers. And as part of our education reform efforts, we're encouraging schools to ask students themselves about school safety and how we can address bullying and other related problems. Because, as every parent knows, sometimes the best way to find out what's happening with our kids is to ask. Even if you have to, if it's in the case of Sasha, you have to keep on asking. Now, as adults, we can lose sight of how hard it can be sometimes to be a kid. And it's easy for us to forget what it was like to be teased or bullied. But it's also easy to forget the natural compassion and the sense of decency that our children display each and every day when they're given a chance. A couple other young people that I just had a chance to meet, Sarah and Emily Booter, who are here from California. They're right here next to the First Lady. And Sarah and Emily, they read a story about a girl named Olivia in a nearby town. There's a girl they didn't know who had faced a lot of cruel taunting in school and online because she had had an epileptic seizure in class. So they decided to write Olivia a letter and ask their friends to do the same. They figured they'd send Olivia about 50 letters. But in the months that followed, thousands and thousands of letters poured in from every corner of the country. It really tapped into something. A lot of the letters were from young people. And they wanted to wish Olivia well and let her know that somebody out there was talking, or was thinking about her. And let her know that she wasn't alone. And because those children treated Olivia with that small measure of kindness, it helped Olivia see that there was light at the end of the tunnel. And the fact is, sometimes kids are going to make mistakes, sometimes they're going to make bad decisions. That's part of growing up. But it's our job to be there for them, to guide them, and to ensure that they can grow up in an environment that not only encourages their talents and intelligence, but also their sense of empathy and their regard for one another. And that's what ultimately this conference is all about. And that's why all the issues that we're talking about really matter. And that's how we're going to prevent bullying and create an environment where every single one of our children can thrive. So thank you for the good work that you're already doing, and I'm sure you're going to come up with some terrific ideas during the course of this conference. Thank you very much.
Jarrett. I'm the Senior Advisor to President Obama. We're delighted to have you here and the outpouring and support and interest in this very important issue. As you've just heard from the President and the First Lady, bullying is a problem that affects us all. And their commitment to end bullying is not just as President and First Lady, but as parents as well. Last week, I mentioned to my daughter that we were planning this conference. Her immediate response was to remind me of a bullying incident that she experienced when she was in kindergarten. Now, we were fortunate. My daughter told her teacher what happened. The teacher immediately informed the principal. The principal took swift and responsible action by explaining to the bullies that their behavior was not acceptable in our school community. She informed the parents of the bullies and me the same day that the incident occurred, and the bullies apologized to my daughter and the parents apologized to me, all before bedtime the same day as the incident. Yet, 20 years later, my daughter still vividly remembers all of the details of that one incident, just as though it had happened last week. And it goes to show that when young people are bullied, even when it's dealt with properly, it can leave a lasting impact. Many of you in this room have had similar experiences, some ending far tragically. But we're here today because we know bullying can be prevented if we all take action together. And luckily, we don't have to start from scratch. The Obama administration, working with many of you here, is already making great strides. The Department of Education has already released 2 guidance letters, one on the obligation of schools to address bullying under civil rights laws, and another on the key components of state anti-bullying laws. The Department of Education is working with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to conduct research on bullying, and today, Secretary Duncan announced his intention to establish a new technical assistance center dedicated to bullying prevention. I'm pleased to, yes.
Because they're only online and they're not physical. The thing with cyberbullying is it really is all-encompassing and it follows you everywhere. When I was bullied in middle school, I would go home and I could forget about it for a while, but now, kids go home and they've got their computers, their cell phones, their social networking website, and the bullying really follows them home. So I think for many kids, it can really be much worse than traditional bullying. It's not about me, so I'm going to move on so we can get into the meat of trying to figure out a great way to solve this problem. So thanks a lot. I do appreciate being here.
Thanks, Justin. Sue?
Hi, I'm Sue Swear, Associate Professor of School Psychology at the University of Nebraska. My N pin. It's an honor to be here. I've been studying bullying for about a decade, and as a licensed psychologist, I'm very interested in the psychological experiences of kids involved in bullying, both as a bully perpetrator, as a victim, and in a lot of our research at Nebraska is the kids who are both involved in bullying as a bully and as a victim. And so we have found that often kids who are bullied at home or in the neighborhood then go to school and also bully other kids. So it's a very complex dynamic, and that's what I hope will come out of this conference is an understanding of the complexity and the social ecology in which bullying unfolds, and we have to understand that complexity in order to develop effective intervention and prevention strategies. So it's an honor to be here.
Thanks, Sue. And George?
Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be here, and I'd really like to thank President Obama for creating this opportunity for us to have a chance to talk about this important issue. I'd like to also extend our appreciation to the family members that are here and community members who are also very interested in trying to solve this particular challenge and respond to the call to action. I am at the University of Connecticut. I'm in the NEAG School of Education. I'm a professor there. And I also co-direct the National Center on Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports that's funded by the U.S. Department of Education. And what we do is spend quite a bit of our time focusing on what is needed to support all kids inside a school. We've learned that by creating larger school-wide climates that are positive, supportive, and respectful, we can do a better job of responding to the needs of individual kids as well as groups of students. So I come to this event more as a school-wide climate person for which the bullying challenge is being contextualized. And it's very important for us to think about what that looks like. I was also asked in this brief comments to give one message, and I think I have a three-part message that I'd like to share with you. And one is, what can you do? What's the smallest number of things you can do to have the biggest impact? And one of the things I'd like to ask all of you to do, which was already mentioned by Mrs. Obama, which is actively supervise your children, or your students, or your community, because active supervision is one of the most powerful tools we have. The second thing I'd like you to think about is that we need to teach what we want, and we need to recognize kids for doing a good job. We're spending quite a bit of our time punishing and acknowledging kids who are engaged in inappropriate behaviors, and I'd really like us to think about how we acknowledge the kids who are doing a good job and the kids who have challenges who are really struggling to do a good job as well. And the last piece I think I'd like to have you think about is that our academic success is probably one of our best tools for creating environments that are successful as well as supporting individual students. So if each one of us in this room can think about actively supervising, thinking about acknowledging kids for doing a good job, and third, thinking about maximizing academic success as a context for supporting kids with some challenges, I think we could adjourn now. No, I think we could continue this discussion, so thank you very much.
Sure, I think one thing that's very clear through the question was recognition that children that do bully also have emotional and behavioral problems that need to be addressed. And this is often something that gets overlooked in the literature when we're focused, importantly so, on the victims, but we do also need to recognize that the perpetrators of bullying are often struggling because of a number of risk factors, maybe exposure to violence in the home or perhaps even a history of victimization themselves. And so we need to think in a tiered approach about how we can intervene appropriately, layering on to those universal or school-wide pieces that Dr. Sagai and I spoke about, more targeted interventions for children that might be in risk for engaging in bullying behavior. And similarly, sometimes more intensive types of supports that include counseling and more intensive therapy is required for children with pretty severe forms of aggressive and disruptive behavior problems. So we need to think in a tiered framework as we approach this issue of bullying to layer on to a school-wide system and a school-wide climate. The more intensive supports provided through mental health and many of our extremely qualified school psychologists across the country.
Thank you.
Well, I think the first thing that's very clear is the parent needs to talk directly to their children about the issue. We've recently completed a study around this, and we were very pleased to see that about 95% of parents said that they did actually talk to their children when they were bullied. I am a bit concerned about the remaining 5% that didn't. And the conversations that parents have with their children around bullying are very critical. They need to be able to support the child, not blame the child, recognize that the bullying is inappropriate and unjustified and unacceptable, but also provide some coaching to the child about how to respond and how to respond in a positive way, and try to develop some strategies that might help them avoid situations of bullying and involve their peers and rely on their peer network, continue communicating with the parents. And we have to be very careful about not encouraging students to fight back. This is an area that we encounter a lot with parents because parents certainly want to defend their children and they want the best for their children. But we as adults have to be very clear about our communication and that we don't want the situation to escalate. So we have to be thinking creatively about how we can support children and giving them effective strategies. There also are going to be students that are going to need more intensive intervention that might require mental health supports either through the community or through the school, and parents can serve as real advocates and resources for their children around that issue.
Just a quick comment from the cyberbullying side. I think it's important that parents are online. I mean, one of the questions asked to me often is what can a parent do to prevent cyberbullying? And the first thing is they need to be in the picture. If your child is on Facebook, you need to be on Facebook. You need to be friends with them. They might not like that, but I actually try to convince the child, the youth, that it's in their best interest to be friends with their parents on Facebook or whatever social networking website it is, because they hear all of the problems in the media about teens getting in trouble and doing bad things, and I say it's your responsibility to show your parents that you're not doing those things. You are safe, you're responsible, you're smart. Now the parents might not know the technology, but they certainly know it's dangerous perhaps to be friends with people you don't know in real life, or to put your cell phone number up there for anybody to see it. And so they can key in, the parents can, on some of the potential risk factors for problematic behavior, whether or not it's bullying or something much worse. So just important for all adults and parents especially to be online and be involved in what teens are doing online.
our data are not as positive as Catherine's data. In our data, typically only about 40 to 50% of kids say that they tell their parents about the bullying. And so that obviously is very concerning. And so I'm a huge advocate of schools collecting data on this issue, on the issue of bullying every year. And one of the questions ought to be, did you tell your parents about the bullying that happened to you? So that then, you know, the schools and the adults have a sense of what is going on in terms of the communication between kids and parents about the bullying. And so I think it's certainly important that schools collect data annually to address some of these questions and get a sense of what's going on in their community.
I have two quick comments about it. And one is, I think it's really important that if you establish a bullying policy or procedures, that it is taught and actively engaged in throughout the school year. It's too late after the bullying event has happened. And we want parents, teachers, and others to know what that process is by which they can communicate with the school. The second point that I think is important is that every single kid inside a school should have at least one adult who they believe they can talk to. It could be parent, it could be teacher, it could be the custodian, but we want to make sure that every adult has someone that they feel free to talk to, because without that, we've got the problem that was described earlier where only 40% of the kids feel like they're comfortable talking to. We don't want the 40%, we want 100% of the kids saying they have at least one adult they can communicate with. So in much of our work, it's about building that relationship with those kids, having at least one adult who can connect with at least one kid so they feel trusting to be able to talk, and also that before it becomes a major event, we deal with the teasing early before it becomes something more tragic.
Thank you, George.
I hope you enjoyed that clip of the White House Bullying Conference. You could find out more information from stopthebullying.gov. Also, the bullypolice.org, they release a lot of information regarding bullying in America. And you can also pick up a copy of Orang Town magazine, orangtowntv.com, to subscribe to Orang Town magazine. We hope you enjoyed this clip, and this is Lady Simone at the White House. Thank you. And welcome to Around Town Video Magazine.